Episode 56 HT August 22, 2023. In New Hampshire, a biomass, wood burning, plant may close, Canada and Facebook. Rosep view, the New Hampshire governor backs wind farms, not wood burning plants. Defying stereotypes of Republican politicians hastening climate change and Democratic politicians fighting climate change, the Republican governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, has vetoed continuing taxpayer subsidies for the polluting Burgess, New Hampshire biomass, wood-burning, power plant located in Berlin, New Hampshire, and the Democratic mayor of Manchester, New Hampshire, who is running against Sununu for New Hampshire governor this year, has decried Sununu's veto of subsidies, which would end subsidies after 10 long years, because she said that the Burgess wood-burning plant lowers costs for families. So the argument is about economics, rather than climate change, and the public argument does not touch on the pollution from wood burning. The stereotype of the Republican cutting taxes holds true in this case, where taxes that New Hampshire residents pay to subsidize polluting wood burning is one reason, perhaps the only reason, New Hampshire Republican Governor Chris Sununu gives for the veto. The tax amount for subsidies over the 10 years is staggering. Governor Sununu is also known as a moderate Republican, one of the few Republicans who has dared to criticize former President Trump. One of Chris Sununu's proudest achievements recently is establishment of a huge, clean energy, wind farm off the coast of New Hampshire. Coincidentally, of interest to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, Chris Sununu's father, another moderate Republican, John Sununu, in 1989 was chief of staff to U.S. President George H. W. Bush. In 1989, Chief of Staff John Sununu was persuaded by Dr. Anthony Fauci to back parallel track use of ganciclovir along with AZT to treat AIDS patients, so AIDS patients did not have to choose either to go blind without ganciclovir treatment or die prematurely without AZT treatment. Chris' father John Sununu went on to persuade George H. W. Bush to back parallel track, and many AIDS patients benefited. Parallel track is an argument Rosep has made in 2023 to the current director of the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Disease, NIAID, successor to Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Jean Marazzo. In 2023, Rosep argues that the seemingly inevitable continuation of the Environmental Protection Agency's, EPA, flawed program of certification of polluting wood stoves should at least exist alongside some mitigation of wood stove emissions pollution by establishment of an EPA or NIAID complaint-based program where near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners could have their complaints heard, Purple Air PM 2.5 monitors handed out to them to put in their yards, which would serve as a hyper-localized fence-aligned measurement site, and the data from the Purple Air monitors could be used to pinpoint the source of PM 2.5 pollution and shut down indoor residential wood burners that emit PM 2.5 above the EPA's own National Ambient Air Quality Standards, NOx, 2023 limit of 35 micrograms per cubic meter. Purple Air PM 2.5 monitors are already used on US EPA AirNow maps of smoke and fire, alongside $100,000 EPA monitors, correlated to EPA monitors with a simple mathematical formula. AirNow maps in 2023 have informed countless U.S. citizens of the quality of their air when deciding to venture outside their homes in masks or not, or when deciding to turn on air purifiers within their homes, when dealing with wood smoke invading the U.S. from Canadian wildfires. Wood smoke from wildfires is the same as wood smoke from industrial wood burning is the same wood smoke as from indoor residential wood burning. Without question, Rosep backs Governor Chris Sununu's veto of future aid in the form of taxpayer subsidies for the polluting Burgess, wood-burning, biomass power plant located in Berlin, New Hampshire. Talk of replacing wood-burning with power from nuclear energy is not backed by Rosep, since in the case of accident, the polluting effects of nuclear radiation would be catastrophic. Enough accidents have happened or mere human error has happened, to not trust mere humans with this risky source of energy. Think of the radiation being released to the ocean in far-off Japan today, because of a nuclear accident that has repercussions today and into the future, as the radiation-polluted waters from Japan inevitably spread around the world. The governor's wind farm gives Rosep hope that a clean energy route will replace polluting wood burning in the state of New Hampshire. In the first article, from New Hampshire Public Radio, 2 sentences sum up the economic argument for wood burning, followed by the economic argument for New Hampshire's own form of nuclear power, the Seabrook Station. From the Public Radio article, supporters of the plant have said its work is critical to the North Country's forest economy, arguing that it provides needed energy and jobs. The plant has the capacity to produce 70 megawatts of electricity by burning low-grade wood. The Seabrook Nuclear Station, by comparison, has the capacity to produce more than 15 times as much electricity, though Burgess, wood burning, is the state's largest generator of renewable energy. Renewable as a term sounds good, but every time the word renewable it should be preceded either with clean or polluting. Wood burning is polluting renewable energy, and nuclear energy is also very potentially polluting renewable energy. And wood burning is not really renewable, as it takes decades or centuries to replace a grown tree that is harvested, and in the meantime, through unscientific winnowing of statistics, the polluting emissions from wood burning are not even counted toward the United States' climate goals. Although less polluting coal-burning power plant emissions are counted, especially when they decline, toward the U.S. climate goals. So the Democratic candidate for New Hampshire governor argues that a wood-burning plant lowers costs for families. Healthcare costs for dealing with the health problems and early deaths from air pollution are not figured into Joyce Craig's calculation of costs to families. What is the reasoning behind candidate for governor and mayor of Manchester, New Hampshire Joyce Craig's argument that continuing subsidies lowers costs for families? The NPR article states supporters of the plant have said its work is critical to the North Country's forest economy, arguing that it provides needed energy and jobs. The plant has the capacity to produce 70 megawatts of electricity by burning low-grade wood. But the NPR article goes on to say the cost to taxpayers has been high. For years, the Burgess biomass plant has produced energy that's more expensive than the market rate, and Eversource customers have footed the bill. Rozep notes the bill so far is $200 million. The governor's veto means that the debt the wood-burning plant owes the state is not forgiven. However, reading on into the second article from the New Hampshire Journal, Rozep sees this veto by the New Hampshire governor is not a simple solution, although it grants Rozep's wish that the wood-burning plant cease to function as a pollution source. In the words of a Democratic New Hampshire legislator, Democratic State Senator David Waters, of Dover, New Hampshire, said he was disappointed in the governor's decision, saying the bill would have addressed the plant's debt down payment while still allowing them to produce power. I am committed to working with my colleagues, from both sides of the aisle, and Governor Sununu to develop a bipartisan solution that will address Burgess debt while avoiding the downshifting of costs to New Hampshire taxpayers, he said. After the veto takes effect, perhaps New Hampshire will be closer to lower costs for taxpayers, ratepayers, as well as closer to using a greater percentage of their home heating from wind power produced off the coast of New Hampshire. A previous Sununu veto was overridden, but that will not happen with this veto. From the second article, as natural gas and renewables have driven prices down, the wood-burning biomass plant couldn't compete. It has repeatedly been given subsidies by legislators, previously overriding a Sununu veto, to keep the plant operating. The third article, also from New Hampshire Public Radio, addresses the economic cost of subsidies and finally attacks the unscientific theory of carbon neutrality of wood burning. From the third article below, I am disappointed by Governor Sununu's veto of this bipartisan bill that would ensure the continued operation of a renewable energy resource and keep jobs in Berlin, Manchester, New Hampshire. Mayor Joyce Craig posted on social media. As governor, I'll stand with local communities to support good-paying jobs and lower costs for families. Craig's claim that keeping the artificially high electric bills for Eversource customers would lower costs for families doesn't appear to match the math. How would keeping ratepayer-funded subsidies lower costs? NH Journal repeatedly asked the Craig campaign for an explanation. They did not offer one. New Hampshire State Representative Michael Harrington, R. Strafford, sits on the House Science, Technology and Committee and is a former New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission member. He said Craig's position would mean never-ending ratepayer payments to the plant. The bottom line is that the plant will never run under the present ownership structure without massive subsidies, Harrington told NH Journal. This is simply the government forcing ratepayers to subsidize a special interest. The charge is paid by every Eversource customer, whether they take default energy service or not, and collected through the stranded cost recovery charge. Ask the mayor if she would like ratepayers to subsidize my pineapple farm in Strafford, Harrington joked. I would only use renewable energy, create many, many jobs. Of course, I would need massive subsidies. And while Craig is correct in calling biomass power renewable, it is not carbon neutral. In fact, even biomass advocates admit burning biomass releases about the same amount of carbon dioxide as burning fossil fuels. Craig's support for a high-carbon power plant appears at odds with her public claims of supporting zero-carbon goals. Once again, Craig's campaign declined to respond to requests for clarification. New Hampshire Article 1. https://ground.news/article/after-governors-veto-the-Berlin's-biomass-plant-is-unclear. After Sununu's veto of rate subsidy, future of Berlin's biomass plant is unclear. Berlin Biopower says it's evaluating options in wake of action. August 21, 2023. NH Public Radio. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. Governor Chris Sununu has vetoed an effort to help keep a biomass plant in Berlin afloat, potentially ending almost a decade of ratepayer subsidies. In his veto message, Sununu said the plant has failed twice to find a sustainable financial model for operating, and that has cost ratepayers over $200 million. Though the bill passed with bipartisan support, top Republicans applauded the governor's decision. The wood-burning plant's contract with Eversource, which dates back to when the company Eversource was still known as Public Service of New Hampshire, has been controversial since the beginning. It was always expected to cost ratepayers more than buying electricity at the market price, exceeding the cap. In 2018, Sununu signed a bill that allowed Burgess to continue producing its more expensive electricity above a previous cap on the cost of that, which was set at $100 million. Burgess hit $100 million in 2019 and continued selling electricity. Sununu suspended the cap again in 2022. This year, House and Senate lawmakers agreed on a plan that would have forgiven the debt the plant owes to ratepayers on top of that $100 million cap, which is expected to total about $70 million by the end of November. The company would have had to repay any additional costs it accrued above the $100 million cap going forward. This article is being shared by partners in the Granite State News Collaborative. For more information, visit collaborativenh.org. New Hampshire Article 2. https://www.nhpr.org/environment// The future of Berlin's biomass plant is unclear after Sununu vetoes plan to forgive debt. The future of Berlin's biomass plant is unclear after Sununu vetoes plan to forgive debt. New Hampshire Public Radio. Published August 18, 2023. For NHPR. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A Burgess Biopower spokesperson said the company was evaluating the impacts of the veto and considering what to do next. Governor Chris Sununu has vetoed an effort to help keep a biomass plant in Berlin afloat, potentially ending almost a decade of ratepayer subsidies. In his veto message, Sununu said the plant has failed twice to find a sustainable financial model for operating, and that has cost ratepayers over $200 million. Time and again the Burgess management and ownership team has made bad promise after bad promise to our elected officials, Sununu wrote. The only thing we have to show for it are more empty promises and false hope to the city of Berlin. But its contract with Eversource, which dates back to when the company was still known as Public Service of New Hampshire, has been controversial since the beginning. It was always expected to cost ratepayers more than buying electricity at the market price. New Hampshire Article 3. https://nhjournal.com/mayor-craig-bax-200m-biomass-boondoggle-vetoed-by-Sununu. News. Mayor Craig backs $200 million biomass boondoggle vetoed by Sununu. Energy August 21, 2023. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. Democratic, Manchester, New Hampshire, Mayor Joyce Craig called out Governor Chris Sununu for ending the $200 million in ratepayer subsidies for the Burgess Biopower plant, saying she was disappointed in his decision. And, she claimed, keeping ratepayer subsidies would somehow lower costs for families. It is a claim that appears to fly in the face of the facts surrounding the biopower bill. At issue is a measure to forgive $70 million in subsidies paid by Eversource customers who were forced to pay artificially high prices for the electricity generated by the Burgess biomass plant. As Drew Klein of the Josiah Bartlett Center noted earlier this year, from the Burgess plant's opening in 2014 through the end of 2021, the PUC-approved biomass subsidy agreement cost New Hampshire ratepayers more than $150 million. That didn't stop the legislature from passing HB 142, taking Burgess off the hook for some $70 million it owes Eversource ratepayers who overpaid for their power. The bill was backed by House Democrats 187-1, while a majority of House Republicans voted against it, 108-81. In his veto message, Sununu reminded legislators of their previous bills giving more money to the Burgess plant, all on the promise that it would find a way to become solvent. But it was the reaction of one of the Democrats, Manchester, New Hampshire Mayor Joyce Craig, who want to take over for Sununu next year, that raised the most eyebrows. Craig is facing one opponent in the Democratic primary for New Hampshire governor. Canada and Facebook. Rozep view. Communication between colleagues in the United States and Canada are hampered by new Facebook rules. From the article below, Rozep notes air sensors. In the United States, there is little regulation of indoor air quality, and occupants typically have not much insight into whether the air they are breathing is safe. Air quality sensors promise to change that. And Ollie Williams, the news editor for Cabin Radio, an independent online news site and radio station in Yellowknife, said Cabin Radio's audience had done a remarkable job of undermining Facebook by taking screenshots of news articles and posting them on their own pages, or by going directly to Cabin Radio's website for news. Canada, Ontario, Ottawa, regarding Facebook's ban on news links for more in Canada. https://www.newyorktimes.com/2023/08/22/world/canada/Canada-wildfires-meta-facebook.html. Canadian officials condemn Facebook for news ban as wildfires burn. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said it was inconceivable that the platform had responded to a new licensing law by blocking news links, as the country confronts its worst wildfire season on record. Smoke from wildfires enveloped Kelowna, British Columbia, on Friday, August 22, 2023. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. As Yellowknife, the capital of the Northwest Territories in Canada, embarked on a mass evacuation of 20,000 residents last week, the city turned to Facebook to help share the latest information about the wildfires that were quickly approaching. But instead of simply sharing a link to a story about the wildfires from CPAC, the cable public affairs channel, the city instructed residents to look up the information on a search engine. Google, CPAC Canada or www.cpac.ca, just remove the spaces, the city posted. In the midst of a natural disaster, Yellowknife had to navigate around Facebook's decision to block news articles on its platform in Canada. Meta, Facebook's parent company, began rolling out the ban on August 1 in response to a new Canadian law that requires tech companies to pay news outlets for using their content. Canadian lawmakers passed the Online News Act in June, requiring social media platforms like Meta and search engines like Google to negotiate with news publishers to license their content. The law is slated to go into effect in December. But Meta has described the legislation as unworkable and said that the only way for the company to comply with the law was to end news availability for people in Canada. As a result, content posted on Facebook and Instagram by local Canadian and international news outlets will no longer be visible to Canadians using the platforms. More on wildfires and wildfire smoke. Traditional firefighting methods are no longer enough, experts in wildfires and forests say. Here are the fundamental changes in strategy they suggest. Wildfires have led tens of thousands of Indigenous people to flee their homes' air sensors. In the United States, there is little regulation of indoor air quality, and occupants typically have not much insight into whether the air they are breathing is safe. Air quality sensors promise to change that. An upcoming study traces far-flung smoke and pollution back to individual wildfires of origin. For many Canadians, especially those in remote parts of the country, the timing could not have been worse, given the nation's worst wildfire season on record. Some users are finding workarounds, such as typing out the full URL, as the city of Yellowknife did, taking screenshots and threading additional information in comments, or ditching Facebook and Instagram altogether. Ollie Williams, the news editor for Cabin Radio, an independent online news site and radio station in Yellowknife, said Cabin Radio's audience had done a remarkable job of undermining Facebook by taking screenshots of news articles and posting them on their own pages, or by going directly to Cabin Radio's website for news. In the last few weeks, traffic to the Cabin Radio site, where a small group of journalists have covered a wide range of developments related to the fires and the evacuation efforts, has shattered records, Mr. Williams said. Melissa David, the founder of Parachutes for Pets, a Calgary-based group, relies on Facebook. Trevor Moss, the chief executive of the Central Okanagan Food Bank, serves Kelowna in British Columbia, where fires continue to burn out of control. Canada, Quebec, Lac La Belle. https://www.newyorktimes.com/2023/08/203/opinions/canada-wildfires-climate-change.html. Opinion. What it was like to live through Canada's summer of fire and smoke. August 23, 2023. A member of the New York Times editorial board reported from Lac La Belle, Quebec, where he has a cottage. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. Up at our lake, we soon learned to track the sheets of smoke online as they swept across Canada, down into the United States and even across the Atlantic Ocean. Some days we stayed indoors, like many others, we bought an air purifier. Thousands have been forced to evacuate homes in endangered areas. Only last week, wildfires approaching West Kelowna, a city in British Columbia, and Yellowknife, the capital of the Northwest Territories, forced evacuation of homes in both cities, and British Columbia declared a state of emergency. On Lac La Belle, acrid smoke hit home. The eerie orange haze had invaded the zone in which my family had always thought we could take refuge. This was a horizon-to-horizon pall over us, rising from infernos across the great Canadian North that had been ignited by record temperatures, record drought and ceaseless lightning storms. Nothing like it had ever happened before. Charles Harvey and Kurt House argue that subsidies for climate capture technology will ultimately be a waste. The worst climate risks, mapped, in this feature, select a country, and will break down the climate hazards it faces. In the case of America, our maps, developed with experts, show where extreme heat is causing the most deaths. What people can do. Justin Gillis and Hal Harvey describe the types of local activism that might be needed, while Saul Griffith points to how Australia shows the way on rooftop solar. As of this writing, 5,881 wildfires have consumed 15.3 million hectares, about 59,000 square miles, dwarfing the 10-year average of 2.6 million hectares per summer. That's like all New York State incinerated, and the fires are burning still. Even I am surprised by this year, said Michael Flanagan, a professor at Thompson Rivers University in Kamloops, British Columbia, who has been studying the interaction of fire and climate for over 35 years. It's crazy and getting crazier. If a forest burns too often, for example, trees cease being able to propagate and eventually give way to grasses. In its latest report, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change found that fire-inducing temperatures in southern Europe will increase by 14% if the planet heats by 2.5 degrees Celsius. One problem is that most people just don't know what to do. Alabama. Environmental advocates criticize Enviva over new wood pellet plant in West Alabama. Alabama Public Radio. Firstly, Gear said wood pellet plants impact residents' health. What we see in terms of the human impact is the excess of harmful particulate matter. Arizona, Maricopa County. Ozone high pollution advisory issued for Tuesday, August 22, Maricopa County. Maricopa County. Wood burning in residential fireplaces, chimeneas, outdoor fire pits. This includes individuals and businesses which have burn permits for California, San Francisco. Bay Area air quality, answers to your most pressing questions. San Francisco Chronicle. Monitoring station data with a smoke forecast and wind speed data, the largest single source of air pollution is residential wood burning. PM 2.5 refers to particulate matter smaller than 2.5 microns. Many scientists now view these inhalable particles with a diameter of 2.5 microns. Mississippi. Burn ban in 40 Mississippi counties, WTOK. WTOK. You can't burn solid fuel, which is wood, during a burn ban. There's very little burning of any kind during a burn ban, said Meridian Fire Chief. Washington, Seattle. Our health depends on a new approach to wildfire smoke messaging, the Seattle Times. The Seattle Times. One of the main reasons wildfire smoke is so dangerous is that it contains high levels of particulate matter 2.5, PM 2.5, small particles that are. Canada, British Columbia. Campfires now banned in the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest. The Leavenworth Echo wood-burning camp stoves will not be allowed. This season we have seen a concerning increase in human-caused fires. Public cooperation is needed. Canada, British Columbia, Kamloops. Smoke reprieve at Sandman Centre, City of Kamloops. City of Kamloops. Residents and evacuees can access the Sandman Centre concourse, located at 300 Lorne Street, between noon and 4 p.m. to seek relief from the Canada, Northwest. Cliff Mass, wildfire smoke hanging over region will be radically better tomorrow. MyNorthwest.com. PM 2.5, or particulate matter 2.5, refers to tiny particles or droplets in the air that are 2.5 microns or less in width. The largest PM 2.5 particles. Fires throughout the Pacific Northwest have caused unhealthy air quality levels as smoke descended upon the region last weekend. The fires in both eastern Washington and Canada are expected to last a few more days. Dr. Cohen, new study links breathing wildfire smoke to dementia. MyNorthwest.com. MyNorthwest.com. If you buy an air quality monitor, it measures PM 2.5 levels, so it's something that you can look at, Cohen said. But particulate matter can. Canada, Northwest Territories, Fort Smith. Fort Smith, Hay River areas the concern for crews as increasing fire behavior imminent. CTV News. CTV News. Fires burning deep into the ground can sever roots of trees and the wood buffalo fire is burning about 4 kilometers from the town of Fort. United Kingdom, Hertfordshire. Report finds Baldock fire started by burning plastic. The Comet. The Comet. A spokesperson for Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue confirmed to the Comet that the fire started accidentally and in the flue of a wood burning. Norway. This is why some houses may seem more haunted than others. Science Norway. Science Norway. A damaged wood-burning stove or a leaking chimney can cause us to hallucinate and see strange things. Indonesia, Jakarta. Jakarta civil servants ordered to work from home to improve air quality. The Manila Times. The Manila Times. And its airborne concentration of the tiny particles known as PM 2.5 recently surpassed other heavily polluted cities, such as Riyadh in Saudi. Spatial analysis of overweight prevalence in China, exploring the association with air pollution. BMC Public Health, Biomed Central. Moreover, fine particulate matter, PM 2.5 and PM 10, also demonstrated an important effect on overweight. Furthermore, we found that the pairwise PM 2.5 and human health, preconceptional and prenatal exposure to air pollutants and risk of gestational diabetes in The Lancet. We calculated the relative risk of GDM by exposure to ambient particulate matter, PM 10, PM 2.5, nitrogen dioxide, NO2, and ozone, O3, in each. PM 2.5 and human health. Towards comprehensive air quality management using low-cost sensors for pollution source. Nature. For PM measurements, these sensors typically use tried and tested. Table 2 estimation of the PM1, PM 2.5 and PM 10 contribution, % of each PMF. PM 2.5 and human health. Thermodynamical framework for effective mitigation of high aerosol loading in the Nature. Nature. The Indo-Gangetic Plain, IGP, is one of the most polluted regions in the world. The mass loading of PM1 and PM 2.5 often exceeds 400 to 600 gm-34. PM 2.5 and human health. Can air pollution shape adolescent brain development? New study reveals sex-specific. News-medical.net. Air pollutants, such as PM 2.5 and NO2, cause pulmonary inflammation and neurotoxic effects on the brain, especially in children. PM 2.5 and human health. Late-onset asthma made me allergic to my middle-class lifestyle. The Times. The Times. Buying a wood-burning stove backfired for Anna Maxted when it triggered the chronic lung disease, at the age of 54. When it occurs in midlife. Rozep's editor makes a succinct argument, below. Please copy and paste into your own email to 13 Assistant Attorney Generals and to Dr. Jean Marazzo, the new Director of NIAID, succeeding Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Hugh Auchincloss of NIH and Dr. Jacob Tabak, Director of NIH. Dear Assistant Attorney General, attached is a letter I sent to National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, Director Dr. Jean Marazzo, former acting NIAID Director Dr. Hugh Auchincloss and National Institutes of Health, NIH, Director Dr. Jacob Tabak regarding regulation and potential shutdown of PM 2.5 polluting indoor residential wood burners. The letter asks Dr. Jean Marazzo to apply a parallel track in 2023 to indoor residential wood-burning pollution, allowing a parallel track of both EPA wood stove certification, which is known to be ineffective in controlling PM 2.5 pollution, which is known to cause antibiotic resistance, which makes pandemics of infectious disease more likely and uncontrollable, alongside a complaint-based system based on Purple Air PM 2.5 monitor data from the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Jean Marazzo's predecessor at NIAID, in 1989, allowed a parallel track of both Food and Drug Administration, FDA, use of AZT following clinical trials rules of use of that one AIDS drug which had a side effect of blindness, alongside allowing use of a second drug during a clinical trial, ganciclovir, which cured the blindness that was a side effect of AZT. I previously sent you a letter asking for you to include in your suit against the EPA, a suit that will commence if the EPA does not reply by August 24, 2023, and ask for a complaint-based system of regulating indoor residential wood burning, using data from Purple Air PM 2.5 monitors in the yards of near neighbors who complain of PM 2.5 from hyperlocalized indoor residential wood burners, even and especially those indoor residential wood burners which are already ineffectually certified by the EPA, that violate the EPA's own National Ambient Air Quality Standards, NOx, emission limits of 35 micrograms per cubic meter in a 24-hour period. Currently, if a near neighbor's complaint is made to a local health department, a complaint using federal NOx exceedance data is not considered as a basis for a complaint against neighboring indoor residential wood burning, nor a basis for shutting down the wood burning appliance if the indoor residential wood stove is federally EPA certified. Lawsuits for nuisance are expensive and beyond the means of the average American, and not considered precedents in courts, generally. Contacting state agencies or other means of shutting down polluting wood stove use affecting the health and lives of near neighbors are not effective because decisions made by the EPA affect the decisions of state agencies. Although the scope of your lawsuit seems confined to asking the EPA to continue their wood stove certification program as is, only at a faster pace, consider the intent that should be behind asking the EPA to tighten their standards for wood stove certification on a regular basis. The intent of an environmental protection agency is to protect the environment, perhaps narrowly construed to be protecting air, water and ground from contamination from industries. But people who live in the United States should actually benefit from the environment being protected, even if getting the EPA to act quickly to continue as they have been acting, only incrementally changing, is the narrow aim of this lawsuit. Tightening wood stove standards on a regular basis should have the result of protecting the environment, as well as protecting the people of the United States from harm from the air, water, and ground if contaminated, and protect the world from hastening of climate change. That is a broad scope, but by contacting NIAID I am pointing out that the EPA's responsibilities are intertwined with public health responsibilities of other government agencies such as NIAID. Please try to accomplish something for the American people with this lawsuit, as well as keeping our air, water, and ground theoretically pristine. As a state administrator, you may think that, taking a narrow focus, I am not your constituent, but by commencing to sue a federal agency, you are representing me as a citizen of the United States and as your constituent. Thank you. Sent to Cody.Doig@alaska.gov Alaska Senior Assistant Attorney General Cody Doig. Jason.James@ilag.gov Illinois Assistant Attorney General Jason James. Goldstein@oag.state.md.us Maryland Special Assistant Attorney General Stephen Goldstein. Turner.Smith@mass.gov Massachusetts Assistant Attorney General Turner Smith. Peter.Serdo@ag.state.mn.us Minnesota Special Assistant Attorney General Peter Serdo. Lisa.Morelli@law.njoag.gov New Jersey Deputy Attorney General Lisa Morelli. Nicholas.Batino@ag.newyork.gov New York Assistant Attorney General Nicholas Batino. Paul.Garahan@doj.state.or.us Oregon Attorney in Charge Paul Garahan. Steve.Novik@doj.state.or.us Oregon Special Assistant Attorney General Steve Novik. Nick.Persampieri@vermont.gov Vermont Assistant Attorney General Nick Persampieri. Caroline.Kress@atg.wa.gov Washington Assistant Attorney General Caroline Kress. Chris.Wrights@atg.wa.gov Washington Assistant Attorney General Chris Wrights. Jennifer.Cleanair.gov General Counsel, Puget Sound Clean Air Agency Jennifer A. Dold. Jean.Marazzo at nih.gov Director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Jean Marazzo. Hugh.Auchincloss at nih.gov January to July 2023 Acting Director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Hugh Auchincloss. Jacob.Tabak at nih.gov Director of the National Institutes of Health Jacob Tabak. https://RAC President Tessword Pre-SS.com/ Please attach PDF letter to NIID Director Dr. Jean Marazzo to an email from you to Jean Marazzo NIH.gov/. Episode 56 GF July 19, 2023. The Ask, request a complaint-based system from 10 Attorney Generals suing the EPA to give wood stove users certainty. The Ask, emails of 3 NIH officials Jean.Marazzo at nih.gov, Hugh.Auchincloss at nih.gov, Lawrence.Tabak at nih.gov emails of 13 Assistant Attorney Generals, Deputy Attorney Generals and General Counsel preparing to sue the EPA to provide clarity for indoor residential wood stove manufacturers, vendors, and users. Instead, the Assistant Attorneys General should ask for a PM 2.5 pollution complaint-based system in place of the failed wood stove certification program. The states involved are Alaska, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington, as well as the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency. A new icon has been added to the RAWSC President's website, which is now the nearest right icon. The icon is an ask that has already been described in episode 56 GB, description of the parties who should be at the table when deciding on safe wood stove emission limits and fence line measurements, rather than wood stove certification, and emails to contact 10 Deputy or Assistant Attorney Generals and 1 General Counsel. Those PDFs are included at the icon link. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, https://racpresidents.wordpress.com and click on the nearest right icon for the ask. 1. Email PDF letters to 3 officials of the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and NIID https://RAC President Tessword Pre-SS.com/ Please attach PDF letter to NIID Director Dr. Jean Marazzo to an email from you to Jean Marazzo NIH.gov/ The Ask 2. Email PDF letters to 13 Assistant Attorneys Generals, Deputy Attorney Generals and General Counsel https:// RAC President Tessword Pre-SS.com/ Please contact Attorneys General about August suit vs. EPA asking for certainty for wood stove users. RACEP asks for complaint-based system based on PM monitor data exceeding EP/ to the right of that 3. Barbie goes to the dating game https://racpresidents.wordpress.com/1-barbie-goes-to-the-dating-game to the right of that 4. Cookies that may contain rocks are recalled https://racpresidents.wordpress.com/cookies-that-may-contain-rocks-are recalled / to the right of that 5. The Fox Owns the Forest card game https://racpresidents.wordpress.com/the-fox-owns-the-forest-card-game-tba then to the right of that, the latest months, 6, August and 7. July 2023, of PDFs of articles with URLs to search on https://racpresidents.wordpress.com/1-august-2023-pdfs-of-urls and https://racpresidents.wordpress.com/1-july-2023-pdfs-of-urls to the right of that, 8. Stickers to hand out for RAWSEP, games such as 9A, Bingo for RAWSEP, 9B. Crosswords for RAWSEP 9C, PM 2.5's Jeopardy free game https://u2.be/lnsg32pydnc 9D, PM 2.5 free Monopoly https://u2.be/cuck1pscqnq and Endwood Smoke Monopoly 9E, vending machines for PM 2.5 monitors, and 10. Icon links to 30-minute YouTube videos and Spotify podcasts as well as podcasts.google.com, CastBox and Pocket Cast. Pocket Cast is only free on the phone app. Pocket Cast works on Apple phones, and, below those icons, icon links to monthly URLs of PDFs from June 2023 to May 2022.